Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into this weather presentation. Here we're going to discuss some of the current conditions across California and take a look at the fall and winter outlook. This is Alex Tardy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. So across the West, this is how the summer of 2019 has panned out so far. When we look at July and August, we can see that desert regions noticeably warmer than average, and even most of the west coastal regions warmer than average, with largely over southwest California near normal temperatures. Now for precipitation, most of California normally doesn't see precipitation in July and August, but for those areas that do, it's been largely below normal and very much below normal across the desert regions. Only a couple storms, in matter of fact, 6 days of showers and thunderstorms total, did deliver some precipitation to our high desert regions earlier in the summer. Now also note across the upper plains from the northern Rockies, it's been cooler than average and much wetter than average. And a pocket of wetter than average across the Pacific Northwest as well. We'll discuss the weather pattern that caused that a little bit. If you look further back in time, basically since June 1st, you can see the same general weather pattern with warmer than normal conditions across the entire West Coast, drier than normal conditions across Southeast California and the desert Southwest with a very weak monsoon, much wetter and cooler than normal conditions across the far northern Rockies and the northern plains. Now let's take a look at the general weather pattern, the jet stream level. What has caused the warm and cold regions? What has caused the dry and wet regions to occur this summer? Well, you can see what stands out as dominant upper level high pressure. This is basically even dominated over the monsoon or the Four Corners high, which has been average. Now, this high pressure system, what it's been doing over the North Pacific is warming the ocean waters even further, causing warm temperatures along the coast, and also pushing most weather systems to our north and east across the northern Rockies and northern plains where it's been wet. It's also been overwhelming the monsoon Four Corners high, much stronger than it. So the prevailing weather pattern really has lingered since the spring months as well, allowing for a very neutral condition over the southwest and a dominant upper level high pressure system over the Pacific Ocean. What's going on in the ocean? Here's what the oceans show us. This is latest sea surface temperatures, and of course we compare them against what the average is. So the bright red areas are departure from normal that is significantly warmer than it should be. Large areas extending from, no surprise, the Alaska region, from that upper level high pressure that has been dominating in that region. Lack of storms, very warm water has developed in that region. And also in the eastern and northern Pacific off the California coast, because of this weather pattern, a lot of that warm water in that region has expanded and increased. Overall, the entire Pacific is much above normal. Now take a look at the El Nino region, or what we call the ENSO region along the equator. We have a large mix of warm and cold in that area. In other words, conditions are neutral, so there is no signal. And that's pretty much been the case for most of this summer. So the dominant features are the very warm, much warmer than they should be, departure from normal ocean temperatures, because of the lack of storms in the dominant upper level high pressure region, allowing for abundant sunshine and weaker wave action and not as much mixing. And we're seeing that with much warmer than normal ocean temperatures across a good chunk of the northern and eastern Pacific. Now let's take a look a little more at the El Nino or the ENSO region, where we look at El Nino and La Nina. The blue areas are the recent La Ninas, going all the way back to 1982. The red are the El Ninos. And what I want you to focus on is the normal swing of El Nino to La Nina continues to occur. So everything is good in the El Nino area We continue to see every few years an El Nino, then a La Nina. Now in 2015-16, that big red spike was the strongest El Nino on record. Now what I want you to look at is when has it been dry or wet in California. Our most recent winter was very wet. It was a weak El Nino. Now, just prior to that, we were basically neutral, in between warm and cold, and we were dry. Prior to that, we were basically neutral between warm and cold, and we were very wet. That was 2016-17 wet. Now, back in the big El Nino year, we were dry, especially for Southern California. And prior to that was the massive drought that expanded from 2012 all the way up to 2015. All those years were dry. We have to go all the way back to 2010 and 11, that winter, when we saw very wet conditions as shown here. So things haven't been matching up like they were in the 80s and 90s. The wet and the El Nino or the La Nina is not matching up, as you can see most recently. Now, that said, what do we expect for the upcoming winter? The upcoming winter offers the tall gray areas on these bars. Now focus on the middle of the winter, and that is where the most likelihood is for neutral or a mixed bag of warm and cold, no signal for upcoming winter. So ENSO Neutral is expected. There is a chance for weak El Nino, a lot like we saw this past winter, but more likely a mixed bag of warm and cold, which means neutral conditions along the equator. All right, here's the official outlook. Let's start with the fall on the left-hand side. The precipitation outlook is expected to be continued dry across much of the west because of that upper level ridge of high pressure, but opportunities for near normal to above normal precipitation across the Rockies into the southwest. So we might be able to salvage some of the weak monsoon that we've seen so far, and perhaps even a tropical system adding into that mix. Now, as we get deeper into the winter, December through February on the right-hand side, we can see there's a little bit of a shift where the above average rainfall or precipitation is expected to be in the upper plains, where a drier signal starts to show up across central or even south central California. So drier or near average conditions for California as we get into the heart of the winter 2019-20. Now, what about for temperature? The fall is expected to continue to be above normal across the southwest, especially the monsoon Four Corners region. Now, as we get deeper into the winter, there's a little bit of a signal of being above average or warmer than normal, which has generally been a trend with a lot of our winters across almost all of the west. So continued warm temperatures despite any precipitation we do get, continued warm temperatures across the southwest.